At a luxury event, a millionaire thought he could ridicule Messi in front of everyone. With an arrogant remark, he tried to belittle the football legend, convinced that Messi had nothing to contribute outside the pitch. But Messi, without raising his voice, delivered a response so precise that the entire room fell silent, and the millionaire would never forget that night. Want to know how this story ends? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss incredible stories like this. And let's dive. Lionel Messi was never the kind of person who sought the spotlight outside the football field. Reserved and far from controversy, he always preferred to let his talent speak for itself. That night, at an exclusive event in Miami, his only intention was to attend, exchange a few words with acquaintances, and enjoy the sophisticated atmosphere. The gathering brought together the most powerful minds in the business world: billionaires, investors, and entrepreneurs who shaped the global economy. To many of them, football was just a sport, and Messi, no matter how iconic, was seen as someone from a different world, distant from the so-called giants of finance. The hall glowed in golden and blue tones, with crystal glasses clinking. In quiet toasts, the scent of expensive perfumes blended with the aroma of rare wines served by impeccably dressed waiters. Messi, in a perfectly tailored suit, moved through the venue without making a fuss. Curious glances followed him, but to his surprise, they were not filled with admiration. There was a certain indifference, as if he were merely an intriguing figure, a football player out of place. This didn't bother him. Messi never needed to prove anything to anyone. But someone in that room thought they could underestimate him. One of the most anticipated moments of the evening was a panel discussion on business and success, where renowned guests would share their experiences. To everyone's surprise, Messi's name appeared among the speakers. A murmur spread through the crowd. What could a footballer possibly say about business? While some expected an inspiring speech, others doubted whether he had anything relevant to contribute. And with that air of skepticism, he stepped onto the stage. Messi took the microphone with the composure of someone who had faced the highest pressures in the world. His voice, steady and unpretentious, began recounting his journey. He spoke about hard work, the discipline that shapes a champion, and how sports teach valuable lessons applicable to any field. But as he spoke, a man in the audience crossed his arms impatiently. He saw no merit in an athlete discussing financial success. This man was a millionaire, known for his inflated ego and his disdain for anyone outside the elite business world. He couldn't accept that Messi was being treated with the same reverence as the magnates around him. That's when he decided to interrupt the speech with a smirk and a mocking tone. "Messi, of course, you're great at football, but here we're talking about real business. Leave that to those who actually understand it." Silence fell immediately. Some chuckled quietly, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Messi, however, remained calm. But those who knew him well understood. That serene look concealed something no one saw coming. His response would change the course of the night. The millionaire's remark echoed through the hall like a direct blow. Some tried to hide their smiles, while others swallowed hard, realizing this wasn't just an innocent joke. It was a direct attack. Messi, used to facing brutal defenders and hostile crowds, showed no immediate reaction. He simply observed. The man in front of him, studying his arrogant posture like someone assessing an opponent before making the next move. The silence that filled the room was a clear sign that everyone was waiting for his response. The millionaire, pleased with himself, leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. To him, Messi was nothing more than an athlete, someone who, no matter how talented on the field, had no real understanding of managing fortunes or running major corporations. In his eyes, true success didn't come from talent or hard work, but from influence and financial power. And because of that, he believed he could belittle the footballer without consequence. What he didn't know was that Messi was far more than just a player. He was a symbol of perseverance, someone who had grown up hearing that he would never be big enough, strong enough, or good enough. Since childhood, he had faced skeptical glances, had been called too small, too fragile, not talented enough. And every time someone doubted him, Messi responded the only way he knew how, with results. The audience began to sense the weight of the moment. The businessman's blatant disrespect wasn't just an insult to Messi, it was a slap in the face to anyone who had ever been underestimated in life, who hasn't been dismissed at some point, who hasn't had their worth reduced by someone who thought they knew better. The heavy air of humiliation lingered over the room, and the expressions in the crowd shifted between discomfort and anticipation. Messi could have simply ignored it and moved on. He had always avoided controversies, preferring to let his actions speak for themselves. But something was different that night. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about proving anything to that arrogant millionaire. It was about making it clear that respect is something you don't buy nor inherit. You earn it. The businessman smirked, confident that he had closed the matter. To him, Messi was defeated, speechless, with no argument to fight back. But at that exact moment, the football legend took the microphone again. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show anger. He just lifted his gaze and spoke with the calmness of someone who knows exactly what's coming next. The entire hall held its breath. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. Messi took a deep breath and gave a slight smile. It wasn't a smirk of provocation or sarcasm. It was the smile of someone who had been in this position before, of someone who had been doubted countless times and always responded in the best way possible. He adjusted the microphone in his hand and, with a calm tone, delivered the first sentence that dismantled the millionaire in seconds. "It's interesting that you talk about business, because while I came from a humble family and worked my whole life to earn what I have, you simply inherited your fortune. I learned the value of hard work. Did you?" Silence fell immediately. The millionaire's smile vanished in an instant. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, crossing his arms as if trying to shield himself from an invisible blow. The audience, which had been quietly observing, began to react. Murmurs spread across the room. Glances were exchanged, and then an unexpected sound filled the space. Applause. Messi wasn't done. He continued, now looking directly at the man who had tried to ridicule him. His voice was firm, but without aggression, carrying only the weight of an undeniable truth. "And just to be clear, football taught me to win with hard work and humility. Maybe that's the business lesson you missed along the way." This time, the applause was louder. The discomfort on the millionaire's face was evident. He tried to maintain his composure, but there wasn't much he could do. There was no argument against the truth Messi had just laid out. The difference between the two was undeniable. One had fought for everything he had, while the other had simply been handed an empire. The humiliation had shifted. Now, the businessman was the one under scrutiny. Some smiled discreetly, others simply watched, waiting to see how he would react. But there was nothing he could do. He was defeated, without Messi needing to raise his voice or stoop to cheap provocations. With no response, the millionaire averted his eyes, picked up his glass of wine, and pretended to look at his phone, trying to disconnect from the moment. But it was too late. The damage was done, and that night would be etched in everyone's memory. The echoes of the applause still lingered, as Messi, without any rush, placed the microphone back on its stand and returned to his seat. For him, the matter was settled. There was no need to prolong the moment or seek any kind of revenge. He wasn't there to win arguments. Messi had already won the most important battle, the battle for respect. Meanwhile, the millionaire remained in his seat, motionless, trying to mask his embarrassment. The man who, just minutes earlier, radiated arrogance, now found himself surrounded by looks that no longer held admiration, but a mix of disappointment and disdain. Many in that room had known him for years, but they had never seen him exposed in such a way. And to make matters worse, his defeat hadn't come from another businessman or financial mogul. It had come from a football player, a mere athlete, whom he thought he could humiliate without consequences. The murmurs started spreading through the hall. Some businessmen whispered among themselves about how elegant and precise Messi had been. Others reflected on their own behavior, realizing how often they underestimated people simply for not being part of their social circle. The event, which was supposed to be an evening of glamour and networking, had turned into an unforgettable lesson in humility for everyone present. Journalists at the event captured the moment. Cameras that had previously been focused on the biggest investors were now all on Messi, eager to record every expression on his face. By the next morning, the story would already be making headlines, circulating on social media and in major news outlets. This was no longer just a brief exchange of words. It had become a global example of how respect outweighs wealth. Messi, however, continued enjoying the evening as if nothing had happened. He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate the victory over the millionaire. Instead, he kept talking with those around him, exchanging smiles and maintaining his calm demeanor. For him, this was just another moment where he unintentionally proved that greatness isn't measured by bank accounts, but by character. Meanwhile, the millionaire left the event early, avoiding glances and steering clear of interviews. That night, he learned the hard way that underestimating someone without knowing their story can come at a high price. But the impact of that night didn't just stay within those walls. Messi's lesson would echo far beyond that event. In the following days, the incident spread like wildfire. The internet never forgets, and the video of the exact moment Messi silenced the millionaire went viral within hours. Social media exploded with comments praising the footballer's composure and criticizing the businessman's arrogance. Some users recalled other times Messi had been underestimated, only for doubters to be proven wrong. It was as if this moment was the ultimate proof that humility and character always win in the end. Many entrepreneurs who attended the event began to see Messi in a completely different light. To them, he was no longer just a legendary footballer. He was an example of discipline and emotional intelligence. People who had built financial empires now realized that true success isn't just measured in numbers, but in how you treat others. And the millionaire, well, he learned his lesson the hard way. After the event, his reputation took a hit. People in his circle started distancing themselves. Journalists questioned his behavior, and he was forced to deal with a kind of exposure he had never anticipated. The business world is ruthless, and in that environment, being seen as arrogant and disrespectful can come at a steep cost. Messi, on the other hand, carried on exactly as he always had, discreet, focused, and uninterested in unnecessary controversy. He didn't post about the incident, didn't give interviews to fuel the discussion. His response had already been given in the best way possible, with class. What remained from that night was a lesson that resonated with everyone who witnessed it, whether in person or online. How often do we underestimate people just because they don't fit into our idea of success? How often do we ignore someone's effort and journey due to sheer prejudice? In the end, Messi proved once again that greatness isn't about wealth. It's about character, humility, and respect. And that night, a millionaire learned that lesson in the worst way possible. In the end, it wasn't Messi who walked away, humiliated that night. The millionaire who tried to belittle him learned the hard way that money doesn't buy respect, and that true success isn't just about wealth, but about character and integrity. How many times have you seen someone being underestimated just because they didn't fit the mold of what others consider important? Are we really judging people the right way? If this story made you think, leave a comment below. What would you have done in Messi's place? And if you want more impactful stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video.